All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to concurrent panel number 4. Ibn Arabi, the traditional mediator, understanding the Ibn Arabi's cultural view of conflict and conflict resolution. Ladies and gentlemen, to simply give some universal context for a moment to conflict, there is nothing that transcends no region, no dialogue, no indigenous group, no place on the planet. Nothing transcends and exacerbates, in my opinion, conflict more than the imagination, particularly the imagination run riot without any restraint of rationality, reason, or command of self and self-possession. In plain English, if you will, what drives conflict out of control is a belief, many times totally unwarranted, that one actor or another actor has done something, is about to do something, or will do something. And that anticipation of that act, either done, concurrently happening, or about to be done, is what drives conflict to a toxic dimension. And that, in plain English, ladies and gentlemen, is a caveat that I would ask you all to consider in the context of the learned discussion that will ensue right now. Fantasy drives conflict. Fantasy drives conflict. What you imagine, what you think, what you hypothesize is happening, is about to happen, is concurrently happening. That is what agitates, excites all the collective brain in the aggregate, the collectivity of emotion, the psyche, and the perspective. If you think in your own personal lives, if you think for a moment of microaggressions, he did this to me, she did that to me, how am I going to resolve that before he may do this or she may do that? It is no different when we look at actors in the international sphere as well as nation states and their leaders. The anticipation of what the conflict might happen, might ensue, the fantasy about that. And it may shock you that the word fantasy is being used because typically fantasy is not a word that is used in scholarly conventions, conferences of this sort, correct? No. In our aggregate lifetime, I dare say, other than this moment, none of us have ever heard the word fantasy used at this type of forum. But I submit to you, and again I ask you humbly for your understanding and patience as you synthesize the wisdom of the speakers, to interlace with that wisdom the possibility how the anticipation of an act that would never occur and has never occurred, the mere fantasy that it might, how that has contributed to the state of play today globally of misunderstanding, misapprehension, and fantasy is always at the core of all conflict. The good news is fantasy is like a Walt Disney character. Now you see them, now you don't. You can control your own predilection, sudden insight into self, how your imagination, fear is running amok and a riot with yourself, and how that is shaping and texturing your responses to conflict. Fantasy. Get it under control, and you'll have no conflict that you can't successfully resolve with a win-win. Ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm from Brazil. I'm a university professor. I work at a post-graduation program in mastering and doctoring, and our main studies are related to citizenship, politics, and conflict resolutions. So I'm glad to be here, and I congratulate the ICERM for the conference and to organize a place where we can share our values and our thoughts. Bruna is my partner in this study, and she and I were inspired in this research by a letter sent to Freud from Einstein. In 1932, after the First World War, he sent a letter and asked Freud, as he considered to be a person who understands people, why war? He was so concerned about this, and Bruno and I are the same, preoccupied at the same. Freud, in his answer, he was surprised because he didn't have the answer. He understands that conflict, as said before me and in the conference in this morning, is necessary to our society, and we cannot live without it. However, we cannot separate war and peace, so what can we do? As peacemakers, we have to continue pursuing peace, and that's our hope when they send these letters in 1932. Why I'm saying about these letters? Because we are in 2018, and we are still focusing, looking for this answer. We don't know how to answer why war. So when Bruno and I have developed this research, consequences of the fundamentalism in international conflicts and the application of fraternal law as a way of pacification, we're trying to find an answer why war, why people are in conflict, and why we consider each other as enemy. Just to show, we are from the south of Brazil. Our state is the last here. You can go on. And we are from a small city, Santo Ângelo. It's a communitarian institution, and it's about 8,000 inhabitants. That's our city. So, we established that international conflicts are characterized as a disagreement of interest between states and nations. However, these conflicts relationships received new concepts which were very clear after the attack on September 11th. So we started to have the same enemy in our world. Only from this fact, the term new terrorism stood out worldwide by the unmeasured acts of an endless war justified by religious fundamentalism. Therefore, it is asked, so what is the influence of this fundamentalism in the international conflict, and how can fraternal law help us? You can go. So our idea is to analyze how can fraternal law answer and help us to continue pursuing peace. As a result, we observe that the fraternal law uses concepts that contribute for the comprehension of the fundamentalism theory and its interference in terrorism. Fraternal law is a theory developed by an Italian professor, Elidio Resta, and it's considering the fraternity from the French Revolution. That is all, at that moment, we only focus on liberty and equality, and we forgot fraternity. So it's time to detach fraternity and think how it can help us. We're not talking about solidarity. When we talk about solidarity, we're talking about a relation between state and individual. We're talking about it in a vertical way. When we talk about fraternity, we're looking at people, from people to people. We're looking in a horizontal way. That's the way we think that we can solve problems and we can face international conflicts. It's about time we face each other as brothers, like Elidio Resta brings us. You can pass on. Again. Here. Go back. Yeah. Fraternity proposes that law discuss about humanism in order to overcome the individualism, personal groups, and classes' interests, and contribute to make the human view universal. Our author says that we are people, we are individuals, but it doesn't mean we are human beings. So we're trying to find here a way how to be human beings. From the fraternal law stands out the idea of a responsible and hospitable international community before conflict situations and aimed specifically to individuals from this community. You can go one more. One more, please. Another. Yeah, that's another. Okay. We are saying that fraternal law is established in a structure of human rights encouragement, while values man in his relationship with equals, as well as people who share with no difference, because they respect all of them. Hence, it is affirmed as an inclusive right, which considers people for the simple fact of being human beings. We established that humanity is the only one responsible for destroying itself, but it's the only one responsible to save itself. So we're claiming here to start looking at each other and looking at the person that is sitting next to us and consider him and her as our brothers and sisters and know that we have something in common that we have to save instead of destroying ourselves. Thank you.